Good morning. We're going to be talking about feet today. It's just after 5 a.m. here in Calgary. And I want to talk a little bit about feet and the relationship between the feet and your pelvis and even up to your thoracic spine. Lots of people have foot issues, right? And we tend to think about just working here at the feet themselves. And in reality, when you look at the bottom of the foot, let me slide up, stand here. When you look at the bottom of the foot, you've got muscles that are intrinsic to the foot itself. And you've also got muscles that attach to your foot, and they also come onto your calf, the back and the front. So when you're trying to sort out things related to your foot, whether it's plantar fasciitis or ankle issues or bunions or, many different things can happen through your feet. You've got to look up the chain. Now, what also is interesting is that your pelvis, I like to call your pelvis the platform, because it's the platform through which the leg bone swings. So if your pelvis isn't stable, then the way your leg bone swings is going to be impacted, and then how that foot lands on the floor is going to be impacted as well. So what goes on through your pelvis has a huge impact on what goes on with your feet. Now, where the rib cage fits in is that when we're walking, between our rib cage and our pelvis, there is a rotation element that's occurring. So to be really, really simple about it, maybe too simple, is that when this is not moving well relative to your pelvis, that can have an impact on the platform of the pelvis. That can have an impact on the way your leg bone moves in your hip socket, and that can have an impact on your feet. Now, to flip it back the other way, you can also hold tension in your feet because of what's going on further up the chain. So it's really important to be able to connect with your feet in a meaningful way, particularly if you have issues in your feet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with having a block handy. We're also going to have a ball handy. And then I've got a spinal strip, but if you don't have a spinal strip, you can also use a rolled mat. Okay, so these are the tools we're going to use. We're going to be doing some familiar movements today, but I think I might be showing you them in a slightly different way. So the first one that we're going to do is we're going to come onto our knees, and we're going to take the toes under. Really, really common in the practice of resting on your bum to your heels. Now, one thing I want to really make sure is that you're not on your tippy toes, that the forefoot of your foot, swing this up here, that you're not just on your little tippy toes here, but you're actually on the forefoot of your foot, okay? So you're on, this part of your foot, not on your toes. There shouldn't be any strain through the knuckles of your feet. No strain through the knuckles of your feet. So if you find that you're on your tippy toes, then grab a block and then lean back and then put the block underneath your knees. Okay, like that. Okay, and so that more of that forefoot is on the floor. You want to be able to have your pinky toes easily on the floor, right? That's huge. Okay, and I want you to notice what happens with your heels. So as you're doing this, you might not be able to see this, but do your heels spread? Do they spread? And so I want you to think about them being right underneath your bum. Now what you can do, and this is one reason I've got the massage ball out, is you can take the massage ball and put it between your heels. Now the massage ball might be too small, and you might find that the knuckle of your big toe gets a bit sore, or you might find some knee stuff. So then what you can do is just take something a little bit wider, and I'm just wrapping up some material that I have that's a little bit wider than the ball, and then I'm placing that. So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to place something between the heels that enables them to have a connection inward, but I'm not trying to squeeze the living crap out of it. And I'm not trying to get the heels to touch. That's not the aim here. What I'm wanting to help retrain is I'm wanting to help retrain the way that those feet are underneath my hips. Now, it may even be necessary if there's still a lot of tension in your feet and you can't do that with your heels, it might be necessary for you to even start up here as a possibility, right? And so you may even find when you're here, your heels are in a much better position, meaning that your whole foot is, right? Because your heel isn't separate from your foot. It's a part of your foot. So if you feel your heel splayed, your whole foot is splayed, yeah? So it may be here where you are, and then this is where you are. Again, you want to make sure that there isn't strain in your knuckle of your feet, of your toes. But this is particularly if you've got bunions. It's not something that I would recommend right now if you've got bunions, particularly because I can't see your bunions, so I can't say for sure, depending on the degree of them. But it's not something I would generally recommend. Yeah? Okay, so we're here. I'm going to just drop the block a little bit. And we're easily breathing. So we've got like the plantar fascia, we've got other muscles that are intrinsic to the feet itself. And then we have muscles that attach up the shin bones and also attach onto the feet. So it becomes interesting to explore that relationship, okay? We're going to stay mostly to the feet for these two exercises. You might just want to bang those toes a little bit gently to the floor. Okay, now we're going to do the opposite. So where we had the toes under, we're now going to pull the toes up toward the ankle bones. So now there's a space between your forefoot, the top of your foot, the dorsal side of your foot, and the ground. And then you're going to sit onto that. Now that might be really hard. We're asking for the muscles between your bones and the muscles that are on the top part of your foot, the dorsal part of the foot, we're asking them to get a little stronger. Okay, now that might be really tough. So what you might want to do is don't slide down into hero's pose. That's not going to do anything related to this position. What you might want to do is still maintain that position, but just provide a little bit of support under with a rolled mat or a rolled towel or the spinal strip. So just a little light support. And again, we don't want those heels splayed. So if it's helpful to put something in between the heels just to hold on to, then that can work. And just notice what that feels like. I've had clients tell me that when they place something between their heels and it just provides that bit of contact between the heels, that their chest starts to open up and their shoulders come back. Sometimes even the way the breath is and the way the voice is in their throat and coming out their mouth changes. And it just goes to show the impact of all of us on all of us, right? Okay, so I'm just going to take this out. I'm going to stay in this position a little bit longer. And again, the same thing applies. No strain through that knuckle. There shouldn't be any pain. Sometimes there's a stiffness. And you've got to be able to discern between what's a stiffness and what's pain. And so if you find yourself holding your breath or just kind of like, oh my God, when is this going to be over? Then I would say that that's more veering on the red light side of the discomfort and come out of it. Okay, good. And then let that go. Lovely. All right, so now what I'd like to do is come in onto your block, and you can also do this sitting in a chair. I just want to come into some calf massage. So you can just keep your foot on the floor, or you can rest it up here depending on what your mobility is through your hip. But I just want you to find, you're going to feel where there's a midline on the inside of your calf, and you'll hit up against a bone there. And I just want you to take your thumbs and roll and press up into that area of that bone. I find particularly with my runners and the cyclists that I work with, this can get quite limited. And people who have plantar fasciitis, I find that this can be quite limited for them too. And it can be really eye-opening when you've got foot issues that feel like they're only in the feet, that like to feel what's going on in that calf. Okay, and then let that go. And then let's come to the other side. Earlier on in March during COVID, it was more like April, I developed a foot issue because I was sitting so much in front of my computer on the floor. And I was sitting in a funny way on my foot, and it took me a little bit to kind of figure out what the heck was contributing to it. But it was recognizing what was going on my foot and my toes, and then my calf, and then up through my hip. And it actually changed as I recovered from that, and as I really clued into all the relationships. The process made me be able to run faster and cycle better. And then there were aspects of my yoga practice that just opened up. So I share that because if you've got some foot issues, it can sometimes be very frustrating. But I also want you to know that as they improve, you're going to find a lot more freedom in so many aspects of your life. Okay, so now let's come off of that and grab that massage ball, and we're going to take it onto the calf now. So we're going to start under the bottom, and then we're going to roll onto the outside. So we just played around with the inside. We're now going to come to the back, and then the outside. So just place it in the meat of that gastrocnemius. That's the calf muscle. And I just want you to maybe lift a little bit up. If your wrists don't like this, then you can just rest here. You don't need to push hard down. And you're just going to roll around on that ball. And just find where the meat of that muscle kind of starts to turn into the Achilles tendon that goes down towards the ankle. And then from there, start to roll your leg bone into rotation and then come into the outside of that. And again, it can sometimes be surprising what you experience there. And then you might go slow with this, and you might roll back to where the posterior side of the muscle is. Okay, good. And then let's come to the other side. And just easy breathing. Okay, good. Lovely. Okay, now from here, just take a peek at your feet and notice what it is that they feel like for now. And then come back here and bring your toes under. And sometimes this can be the difference that makes the difference for people. It's just notice what that feels like, how the heels line up. Maybe you still need to have the block. But just notice the quality of the feel, yeah? Like notice if there's any distinction of what you're experiencing in through the bottom of your foot. And if you're noticing what I'm doing here, I put the block under to show you how the angle between my leg bone and my pelvis changes. And so then what you can play with, you'll see the spinal strip is a little bit less. Right here. So then what you can play with is then lowering down. And what you're doing is you're lowering down and making the angle between your leg bone and your pelvis a bit bigger. And that will put a change to what you feel through your feet. Right? And so then you can then make the change by undoing the spinal strip and then coming onto it a little bit more like that. And you'll notice the distinction of how your weight transfers through your foot. So you'll get a lot more understanding about how you can keep improving the bottom of your foot, okay? So you don't need to rush or push. I know a lot of yoga classes, I've been in classes, and I've done online classes where the teacher, there's almost like this, and I say this with a laugh, like there's almost this gleeful evilness around doing this position, and there can be so much more ease around it, yeah? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, from there, now let's take the toes under. Just pat the toes out if you need to, and then take the toes under, and then notice if there's any difference in how you're sitting on them, right? And for me right now, I mean, it's just after 5 a.m., so having woken up a short time ago, even with doing a few of these movements, how much different it feels through my feet. It's kind of cool, actually. Okay. So now from here, I want you to grab whether a rolled mat or maybe you've got a rolled blanket or a towel. I wouldn't use a bolster, although you could. What we're going to do is we're going to place this in two positions. The first one is you're going to lie back and you're going to place it right opposite the bottom of your breastbone. So if you're wearing a bra, the point of placement is right at the bra. So directly opposite. If you wear a polar heart rate monitor, which I don't think people really wear anymore, I might be dating myself, but it's right where that band comes around, right opposite the bottom of that breastbone. And I just want you to be here for a moment. And it might feel a bit odd, given the theme is the feet, and we're up in the T-spine. But it's really remarkable how when you change what's going on in your rib cage or your T-spine and up through to your head, how that shifts the positioning of your body and how you are on your feet. So it can, for some people, really shift up your posture, which then shifts up the way that you are bearing load through your whole system. And just take a few breaths here. You might find that where you are placed, whether it's a strip or a rolled mat or a rolled blanket, it might feel really sore, or your back might feel sore. You may even feel something in your jaw. And what I want you to notice here is that we're doing a back bend. So we're asking the front line to release, which even though you get into the position, you might not have actually had that release. And so if you lift your hips up a little bit and just shorten up the line and place just a block underneath, that might be what you need. The other is to notice that we're also doing a horizontal release this way. And so sometimes this action here is what's the limiting factor. So you might want to come off the spinal strip or the rolled mat or go into something smaller like a rolled blanket or a rolled towel, or take the spinal strip out completely. We're about to do something else that involves the spinal strip in a different way. So you can always come back to it at another time as this area of your body starts to shift. But what becomes interesting is starting to notice, we're going to take this away, is starting to notice these relationships between your body, because sometimes people can have the experience or the feeling that their body's breaking down on them, when in reality there's just a limitation in their tissue, right? And then it's helping that tissue become a little more supple so the other parts of the body work better. So sometimes it's a lot simpler than people make it out to be, because sometimes the world of pain, people make it complicated, and I don't find that it needs to be complicated. Yes, we are dynamic human beings, but it doesn't mean that recovery has to be complex. Yeah? Okay, so now we're going to play. I've just changed the orientation of this, so now it's this way. And we're going to place it underneath here, and then we're going to lie back over it this way. Now, I'm going to grab one more thing for you, because sometimes if you've got a spinal strip, sometimes putting it there can be a little tricky. So I'm going to grab a second spinal strip. I'm going to grab a second spinal strip. And so if you've got a rolled mat, you can always use two rolled mats. And so then you're positioning it like this in a T. Okay, and so how it would go is that you've got it like so. And now you are, let me just move this back just a little bit. And now you place the cross one where at the bottom of your breastbone, T7, T8. If you're wearing a bra, it's right about the bra. And then the other one comes in as a T and is right vertical, hitting up against it. And like I said, you can use two rolled mats if you want, for sure. And you can use rolled blankets. That's fine. Just have them be about the width of a thin rolled mat. Okay, not one of the big Manduka mats. Okay, so now we're just going to lie here. This one might feel a bit different than the last one. And we're going to add a twist. So you're going to take one leg up towards the sky, have the leg at 90, and now with the shoulder girdle staying where it is, you're going to start to take yourself into a twist. So my arms have stayed exactly where they are. And then I'm coming back up. Good. And then other side. Let's take that twist. Good. And then come on back. Now you can be in that for a little bit longer if you'd like. All right, good. And then from here, taking the spinal strip away and then lying flat on your back. And just notice now what it is that you feel through your body. All right, lovely. And then come on over. And we're just going to do one more test, just for fun. We're going to come back into your hands and knees, take those toes under, and then come on back and notice what it is that you experience through the bottom of those feet. I'm betting for some of you that there's going to be a change in the orientation between your legs and your pelvis, so that your bottoms of your feet may shift. Okay, and then the same thing the other way. And just notice what that feels like. Awesome. Lovely. Okay, now you can lie back and enjoy your Shavasana for a little bit. You might even just notice that there's this freedom that's been born within, and you might want to lace up your running shoes and go out for a run or do some other movement that you might not have done for a bit if your feet are to have a tendency towards getting sore. If you have that sort of euphoria inside of your feet feeling good, just be mindful as you go, yeah? Don't just go running off and use up that energy. Be mindful of how you feel as you are doing the movement, and just pay attention, okay? So have a great time exploring, and we will see you tomorrow. Mwah. Take care.